right, welcome back. So now we're going to look at how do you find the coordinates when you're dealing with the pi/4 pieces. So for these, the special right triangle that gets used is our second special right triangle, which is a 45, 45, 90. Okay, so very much like the other special right triangle, it's got set dimensions. Okay, so if your hypotenuse is 1, which makes sense because it's a unit circle, it's only got a radius of 1. Then if it's going to be an isosceles triangle, since it is, because these are both 45, okay, these two measurements have to be the same. And so in order for this to be a right triangle and work out, this has to be square root 2 over 2, and this is square root 2 over 2. Okay, so that's why these all repeat like that same fraction, because it's an isosceles triangle that's being flipped around. So for this one, if I can line it up for you, okay, so the x and y are the same, so you're basically the same distance up and down. So this point would be square root 2 over 2, square root 2 over 2. Okay? And then it just does the same thing again when you're like doing the other sections. Okay? So when you're going over here, you have the same triangle, which, sorry, I forgot to write on the back for you so you can see it, but we'll just do that real quick. This would be 45. This is 45. Here's our 90. Okay, so hypotenuse is 1. This is square root 2 over 2. This is square root 2 over 2. So it's the same measurements. It's just being flipped over to the quadrant 2. So since we're in quadrant 2, we know that the x is negative and the y is positive. So it's going to be negative square root 2 over 2, positive square root 2 over 2. And then you just keep following that same pattern. So if we're doing this section down here, same thing, but we just got to pay attention that x would be negative and y is negative as well. So negative square root 2 over 2, negative square root 2 over 2. And then over here, if you can just picture, you know this triangle is going to be an isosceles triangle. It's going to be the same distance. You just need to pay attention to what signs you'd have. So you'd have positive square root 2 over 2, negative square root 2 over 2. Okay. And then that's how you get all of those coordinates around the unit circle. So if somebody was like, what's cosine of 3 pi over 4? It's negative square root 2 over 2. Okay, then the last thing we need to talk about on the unit circle, which is the easiest part of the unit circle in my opinion, is what would be the coordinates for these guys. So you've got like your north, south, east, west. Okay? So the key thing to keep in mind is that this is a unit circle, meaning that the distance here is 1. It's got a radius of 1. So if you're graphing on the x and y axis and you just go over 1, but you don't move up or down, this point is 1, 0. This point would have to be 0, 1, because you just went up 1. Over here would have to be negative 1, 0, because you just went to the left 1. And then down here would have to be 0, negative 1, because you just went down 1. And then there you go. Now you have a complete unit circle. So odds are you will not have to have an exam where you have to fill it all out at once and do the whole thing. But if you can remember like what you're counting by in the patterns, then if you're on an exam and you're just trying to figure out like something random over here, like 7 pi over 6, for example, then you can draw yourself a circle, start at pi over 6, and count around until you get to 7. So then you know you're over here. And then you can sketch yourself a little triangle. And then remember, the long piece would be the square root 3 over 2. So that would be my x. And then the y would be the 1/2. So that's where that comes in. So that's how I do the unit circle. I know there's lots of different patterns on how to do it, but that's how I've done it for years. And so hopefully that'll help you all to be able to memorize or at least learn how to make the unit circle each time and learn how the trig works with it. So I hope that was helpful, and leave any questions you have in the comments below.